We are continuing our short video lecture series on water resources, and we're focusing on water quality. The figure before you on the screen shows the probability of drinking water contamination by volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, in the United States. These are man-made chemicals that are often used in industry, or as cleaning solvents, or in pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides, as well as they can be found in gasoline and diesel fuels and fuel oil. So if you live in any areas with red or yellow dots, it's very possible that there's the presence of some form of a volatile organic compound in the groundwater system. The USGS recommends that you should have your well tested if it's a private well for VOCs. If you are on public water supply, then you are welcome to call your supplier and confirm that the municipal water supplier tests the water for VOCs, which is typically standard for any water supplier for a community. Again, the data is from the U.S. Geological Survey, and the yellow dots indicate a 10 to 20% probability of contamination with VOCs, and the red dots indicate a greater than 20% probability of contamination with VOCs. And if you look at Pennsylvania, we have quite a bit of red area here around the Philadelphia region, which is heavily industrialized between Philadelphia and New Jersey, and out in the Pittsburgh area as well. Now the slide also indicates the Safe Drinking Water Act. This is a law that was passed and by the federal government and is overseen by the Environmental Protection Agency. The law sets forth the allowable, permissible contaminant concentrations in water in such a way that they won't harm human health. These allowable, permissible levels of contaminants are called maximum contaminant levels. This is another map that was compiled by the USGS, and it shows the distribution of arsenic across the United States in terms of arsenic that was detected in drinking water or groundwater. So arsenic is a natural occurring element in various rocks. In addition, arsenic can get released into the atmosphere through emissions from industry, such as coal-burning power plants, as well as be emitted into water from treated discharge from copper and lead smelting factories. It can also get into the air from municipal trash incinerators or into the water through wood-preserving treatments, as well as leachate from landfills. And there are pesticides that also contain arsenic as well. So it's definitely a constituent that can get released into the air or onto the land or into our water. Acceptable levels of arsenic in the United States drinking water has been 50 parts per billion since 1942. This is 5 times the international standard of 10 parts per billion that was adopted by the World Health Organization in 1993. However, good news is that the World Health Organization has pressed the United States over the years, and recently the U.S. lowered its drinking water standard for arsenic to 10 parts per million to match that of which has been set by the World Health Organization. So the blue triangles on this map depict locations where arsenic has been detected in the groundwater at concentrations between 10 to 50 parts per billion. The blue triangles indicate areas where the arsenic levels are exceeding our safe drinking water maximum contaminant level, or the allowable permissible level of arsenic in a drinking water supply. The red triangles indicate areas where arsenic has been detected at greater than 50 parts per billion. So this indicates concentrations of arsenic that are 5 times higher than the permissible Safe Drinking Water Act standard that's been set here in the United States to match that which was established by the World Health Organization. Now, if there is arsenic in water, it doesn't mean you can't remove it or treat it. If you run the drinking water through activated alumina, it can absorb the arsenic and withdraw it from the water. Also, reverse osmosis can withdraw arsenic from water. This picture depicts a scenario of water quality problems in streams correlating to that of a discharge point from a wastewater treatment plant or an industry or a factory. So the way this diagram appears is that the concentration of dissolved oxygen is depicted on the y-axis, and the distance downstream is depicted on the x-axis. So you can see as stuff leaves this discharge pipe, it's highly concentrated, but then it disperses evenly throughout the stream and becomes even more dispersed as you get further away from the discharge pipe. And the direction of stream flow is from left to right on your screen. So up gradient, or upstream from the discharge pipe, we have 8 parts per million of dissolved oxygen. This is a good dissolved oxygen content for a stream. So this is considered to be clean water with organisms ranging from trout, perch, bass, with little mayflies and stoneflies. So you have a good oxygen level here represented by the tan line. And this is considered the upgradient clean zone. Now, the biological oxygen demand is this blue line, which is going to shoot up and then curve downward. Biological oxygen demand is a measure of the organic waste material in a stream that basically consumes the oxygen from the stream as a result of it being fed upon by various bacteria. As the bacteria feed upon this waste material, they pull oxygen from the water, and the oxygen content then decreases. So, right after this discharge pipe, we have what's called the decomposition zone. And notice that the dissolved oxygen decreases significantly down to about 2 parts per million. Well, we need about 4 parts per million for certain fish to survive and thrive in a water environment. So as this oxygen content decreases, we're going to see there's less perch and less trout because they like highly oxygenated water. Instead, we might have more carp or gar, and then leeches will still be present. So oxygen declines in the water down to 2 parts per million, and then we have what's called a septic zone. We don't have any fish present here because the dissolved oxygen content is too low. In addition, we might just have sludge worms and bacteria, and it's very unlikely to have any carp or gar in this area because the oxygen is too low. Once we get past the septic zone, the discharge material is going to start to disperse more, and it's being broken down, and we're going to start to see a recovery zone where the oxygen levels start to come back up. And again, we have carp and gar, and these are called trash fish because they don't serve much purpose in terms of fishing for food or whatever. And then you eventually get a recovery zone or a clean zone here where the water rebounds back up to its original 8 parts per million and its original water quality that once existed up gradient of this discharge point. Now, the biological oxygen demand was really low at first, up gradient of the discharge point, and then that spiked because of the discharge material, and this is indicating that the BOD is high and there's bacteria chomping on that organic material, causing the oxygen also to decrease. And as that material is consumed, the BOD decreases to a point at which it's no longer present in the stream and oxygen levels recover. So this is fine if your industrial wastewater discharge points or your wastewater treatment discharge points are located far enough apart from one another that there's opportunity for the stream to recover. But if they're not located far enough apart from each other, then we have multiple discharge points, and the stream ends up being in a decomposition zone or a septic zone for a long distance of stream mile. This is when we run into situations when our aquatic environment is being impacted by overloading with too much point discharge of material that's impacting the dissolved oxygen content of the stream, and hence impacting the aquatic species that can live in the stream. This is a figure that's just depicting different sources of pollution to coastal waters as well as surface water. And we have industry, we have runoff, urban runoff and sewage treatment plants. We have urban sprawl with septic tanks, construction sites with sediment, farms, and then in the coastal area we have red tides that can occur from excessive nitrogen, an explosive growth of microscopic algae that can poison fish and marine animals. We have oxygen depleted zones off our coastlines, which I'm going to talk a little bit about, that end up causing fish kills. And we can actually have toxic sediments and chemicals and metals that contaminate shellfish beds and kill spawning fish as a result of discharges that come from the land and accumulate in our near coastal waters. So there are a variety of sources on land that contribute to the pollution of our coastal waters. Many humans treat the ocean as a dumping site. Now, we have laws here in the United States that do not allow that to happen, but other countries may not have those laws. About 80% of the pollution that's present in our coastal waters originates from on land. 80 to 90% of municipal sewage from coastal areas of less developed countries is dumped directly into the ocean without any treatment. So the pollution of our ocean is almost an untouched topic where we're still addressing it. And I believe it's because the ocean appears so vast and big that we think that the ocean can handle what's coming from the coastal waters. But we are now discovering that that's not the case. This is an example of a wastewater discharge pipe near a coastal area. And then this is an example of floating trash and debris in the ocean. So, as mentioned earlier, oceans are polluted by chemicals spilled into them directly and by pollutants washed from the lands and transported to the oceans by the rivers. There's actually about 3.2 million tons of oil that enters the ocean each year. There's an estimated 400,000 marine animals that die each year as a result of all the plastic, 7 million tons, including nets, that are discarded into the ocean that they get caught up in or they consume, and it makes them sick and die. We also have issues pertaining to medical waste in the ocean, sewage sludge dumping in the ocean, and the Natural Resource Defense Council estimates that there's about 2.3 trillion gallons of liquid waste from sewage treatment plants that's dumped directly into the ocean. And this impacts nutrient loading and causes algae blooms and dissolved oxygen depletion and fish kills. As far as the oil is concerned, I can provide you with a breakdown that about a half of this is from natural seepage that occurs in offshore deposits. About a fifth of it is from oil well blowouts or breaks in pipelines or spills, and the remainder is oil that is disposed of on land and carried to the ocean by rivers from urban runoff that gets into the streams and rivers. Now, a couple laws have been passed to try to protect our oceans. There's the 1990 U.S. Pollution Oil Act, and this established a fund to clean up oil spills and pay for damages. In 1988, there was the U.S. Plastic Pollution Control Act, which says it's unlawful for any U.S. vessel to discard plastic garbage into the ocean. Also, it promotes the manufacturing of degradable plastics. And then in 1988, we also had the U.S. Medical Waste Tracking Act that requires medical waste to be tracked so that it's kept out of an ocean dumping scenario. And in 1988, we had the U.S. Ocean Dumping Ban Act that prohibits the dumping of sewage sludge into the ocean. So, the long-lasting process of dumping sewage sludge into the ocean from the United States ended in 1991 as a result of the Ocean Dumping Ban Act. So we have some laws in place here in the U.S. that have tried to set a precedent for protecting our oceans and decreasing human impact on the water quality of our oceans. The map in front of you displays the 17 largest oil spills around the world between 1910 and 2010. The largest oil spill occurred in Kern County, California, where 9 million barrels of crude petroleum was released in 1911. The second largest just recently occurred in the Gulf of Mexico with the Deepwater Horizon BP oil spill. The third largest was actually a purposeful release into the Persian Gulf by the Iraqi army during the Desert Storm War. It was estimated that 2 to 6 million barrels were expelled. The 17 largest spills include 10 ship groundings or collisions and explosions, 4 oil derrick platform disasters, 2 pipeline leaks, and 1 purposeful release by the Iraqi army. These spills are usually related to aging or failed equipment, failed pipelines, or human error. Because oil doesn't break down easily in the environment, much of the oil from these oil spills end up in our oceans at some point.